we start off with breaking news. Tesla rebounding today, but tech guru Gene Munster coming out with a new note just now, slamming the company and the board, calling for a complete overhaul of the board to keep the electric vehicle maker afloat. We should note that Gene has been a bull on this story, is a fan of Elon Musk. So what is behind this rather bold call? We're going to start the show a little differently, begin with the man himself who made the call, Gene Munster of Loup Ventures, for more on this. Gene, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Melissa.
So you say Elon Musk should probably stay. Musk is Tesla, Tesla is Musk, but something's got to change, and it starts with the board. What kind of overhaul are you talking about?
A big overhaul, Melissa. We're thinking that of the 9 board members, probably 7 of them, 6 or 7 of them need to go. Tony Gracias, Elon Musk, and maybe James Murdoch can stay, but the rest need to go. And I want to put some definition. As you said, we've been longtime believers in the Tesla story and continue to be believers in their wonderful mission of accelerating the globe's adoption to renewable energy. And I want to just quickly also say is that for investors or traders who are trading the stock, it's a great opportunity to own Tesla because it's all about near term, the numbers and profitability of Model 3 production, which will probably be good for the September quarter. But what has changed, and the reason why we're coming out with this op-ed, is that if you look underneath the hood, and we've done that more aggressively in the past 2 days, we've been alarmed at not only the talent that they've lost, it's been well publicized. 13 executives have left. Many of those have gone to competitors, so giving some of Tesla's knowledge over to the competition. But what is even more concerning is what's going on, we believe, on the recruiting front, is some of Elon Musk, some of those tendencies that we see, and we've been around his social media presence and his tweeting, some of that also comes out in interview processes. They're looking at recruiting top talent. And their ability to bring in new talent, we think, is going to be foundational for the company over the next several years. So the issue that we have is not about this September or the December quarter, but needs a wholesale change for the board to really move Elon into a visionary role and build some better directions and controls around him and allow the company to flourish. We have some suggestions about who a new executive chairman may be, but in a nutshell, Melissa, that's what we're proposing.
So let's say, Gene, because you do say that you believe the numbers for the quarters, for the next couple of quarters, could actually be good, and there are many on Wall Street who also believe that. Let's say that happens, that they actually meet all the projections, et cetera, that they are able, if they so choose, to tap the capital markets for more capital in the future. Let's say all of that happens. Do you think that the pressure abates? I mean, does the problem go away at that point, or do you think that this is something that needs to happen no matter what the stock does from this point on, no matter what the company's ability is to raise capital, no matter how many earnings projections and how many targets they actually hit?
It needs to happen. The stock can rebound, call it back to the high 300s, based on just what you described in the near term. But in order for this company to be multiple times bigger, to be a $500 billion company out there, to be one of the leaders about what's going to happen in tech over the next decade, in order for that to happen, there needs to be a fundamental change in Elon's role. About a month ago, we wrote an open letter to Elon, and we're optimistic that people don't change often, but there could be some polishing around how he deals with the public and investors and the media. In fact, I was wrong, is that he is not going to change. And so while they may get through this tight spot in terms of profitability, for the company to reach its full potential, you have to be a magnet for great talent. And the opposite is happening. We're seeing great talent leave. Doug Field leaving Apple was a huge loss. We've talked to people inside of Tesla and heard that his loss was something that is very frustrating for the rank and file. That can't happen, and ultimately the board needs to take some responsibility and basically resign. 2/3 of them need to resign to right the ship. And Elon, if in fact he really does, his goal is to prove the doubters wrong, the best thing for him to do is resign the executive chair position and give it to Al Gore, for example. Give it to somebody who can be a visionary, who can draw in great talent and great leadership.
Let's say, Gene, Elon is no longer CEO. He takes some sort of a chairman role or whatever you want to call it, but is still connected with the company. You outlined a couple of key problems for Tesla, at least immediately, in terms of talent recruitment and retention, and then also his tweeting behavior. You know, separating him from the CEO role will solve maybe the talent retention and recruiting problem because it'll sort of insulate those people from Elon. But in terms of the tweeting behavior, it still opens the company up to the same liability, doesn't it, as they would face as Elon now today as CEO?
We'll still see some of the same nonsense. I don't think it can get much worse than what we've already experienced. But at least you can kind of say that that's Elon and that's a visionary and that's part of being an eccentric personality in the Valley. So I think that that piece about recruiting, retaining, and recruiting is critical for the success of any company, and that's a game that Tesla's losing today, and that's why this is really a moment of action for Tesla's board. I also need to emphasize something, is that Tesla still needs Elon. And the reason is that what is a visionary? I mean, if you really break it down, a visionary is somebody who thinks of big ideas, but also sets the pace. And he just defines a pace of hard work inside that company. And we know that that's true. And we know that there are a lot of people we describe as disciples in the company that really aspire around his work ethic. So I want to be clear, I think Elon needs to be a part. We do not need another Scully situation in Apple when Steve Jobs left. That's not what we're proposing here. What we're proposing is Elon is in a comfortable visionary role that can inspire, but also leave some structure for recruiting and retention.
Gene, do you have any insight if they're actually thinking about this prior to your op-ed or thinking about it now in the wake of?
I suspect that they've been not thinking about resigning from the board. I think that the board doesn't have a backbone. I mean, I think that as hard as it is for me to say that as a believer, it's true. So I don't know if they have the self-reflection to go through with this plan. They need to do that. I think that they're probably thinking more in the context of how can we reel in Elon and not have him behave on social media. That's missing the point. There's a much bigger story here going on. And I just hope that... Who
forces this change then, Gene? I mean, if the board doesn't have a backbone, I would imagine that 6 of the board members aren't going to resign on their own for the best interest of the company. How does this change actually happen? Will it have to be a large shareholder that takes the charge here? And who might that be? Is there anybody who has that in them, that fight in them?
I think there are investors out there. I've talked to them more recently, and their tone has been increasingly more concerned, not surprising. But the math of it, Melissa, is a little bit difficult because you need a super majority. So essentially what happens is that you need about 70% of the stock to vote in favor. There was a motion to remove Elon recently this summer that failed. This is before all this stuff over the last couple months. But so the mechanics of it, just simple shareholder vote, it's unlikely to happen. But really, for this to happen, it would, and this is a tall order, but would really take a mature point of Elon to say, I love this company. The best thing for this company is to have an outside executive chairperson run this, and for me to do what I love.
All right. Gene, thanks so much for sharing this with us. We appreciate it. Gene Munster of Loup Ventures. By the way, for more on Gene's bold call for an overhaul of the board at Tesla, you can head over to CNBC.com to check out the entire note. You saw the reaction of the stock today. Could this be the start of a turnaround? And if what Gene outlines happens, would that make you more bullish on the stock, Grasso?
I think short term it's going to make you more bullish. I think you would feel that there are things that are going to get better. I think longer term you still have major issues that plague Tesla. But when you look at Tesla's performance year to date, it's only down 8%. So you have to really look at this and say, is the top capped and is the bottom capped? And I would say the bottom is not capped. Your risk is still to the downside.
Yeah, but the problem they have is they're going to need money at some point in time. And if you look at the Tesla bonds, they still continue to be down. They haven't rebounded that much. So if you have a crisis of confidence at the top, then it's going to be harder to convince bond investors to finance this going forward. Part of the reason why this company needs Elon Musk is because he is that visionary and people will give him that benefit of the doubt. They need to bring in some kind of an adult in the room, so to speak. It's very typical in Silicon Valley. Elon can be Elon. He can be the visionary. I agree 100% with Gene.
Yeah, so Brian's talking about $2.7 billion in debt that's due between now and the end of 2019. So, you know, in the short term, there's serious. By 2025, it's about, I think it's close to $9 billion. But that's not the issue. The bottom line is it's return to fundamentals. So we're a few weeks away from getting preliminary third quarter delivery numbers. And that, to me, is what it's all about here. But I would underline a couple things that Gene said. Gene referred to this as a wonderful mission. And that's great, except for the fact that when investors are investing in companies, I think they would rather be investing in a B-plus plan with an A-plus management team rather than investing in an A-plus vision with a B-plus management team. And that's what this feels like, because bottom line is operationally, these guys have not been able to produce. I don't care what you say. And so what we're all investing in is the A-plus idea without the A-plus execution.
But imagine if there were an A-plus idea with an A or A-plus management team. And that's what Gene is saying. That can change if they so choose.
And look at the little rally that we had today just because they promoted their so-called fixer within the company, right? That was a tiny little change. Imagine if you brought in somebody, maybe it's an Al Gore, maybe it's a former auto executive, somebody like that. That could be massively game-changing.
Then you look at it just from a trading perspective. Just let's play just a game in terms of how it traded over the last couple of months. Broke 280. We said it's probably going to revisit that April low. That's exactly what happened. And look at the bounce from that low. It held basically at 250 level that it traded back down to in April and has bounced. What does that mean? In my opinion, now at least you have a very definitive risk reward. I don't think it's going to retest those levels anytime soon to the downside. And I think there's a chance it sort of trends higher in the wake of all this news we're hearing. So at least you know what you're trading against now for the first time maybe in a long time.
The problem is with that downside is that if we do break that level, you know the same chart, we go down to $180. If this thing breaks now, if we break the most recent low that we hit, we go to 244,
right.
and then below that,
but we've held 244. We haven't touched 244.
No.
Since the first time it hit 244,
we did hold that
even with
level.
all this stuff thrown at it.
250-ish, 252.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if now you get these little baby pops that we're talking about, and you make a series of lower highs, then the real story is broken, and that fear-mongering of everyone talking about Tesla below 200, that's really a potential.